Hello and welcome to my latest vintage Schumacher RC video. Here it is, people. This is the well-anticipated works version of the Cougar /2 because the original release of the Cougar was just a standard Cougar, standalone Cougar. This is the works version of the Cougar 2, there was many variants of the Cougar 2. This is the later, the very last variant, because you had the Cougar 2 Sports, Team, and Racing. Not in that order. The Team was the best, top notch. The Team was the top notch Cougar 2. Had virtually the same upgrades as the works, this version, but slightly different chassis, slightly different gearbox position, different wishbones on the rear. But anyway, this is the re-release version of the works version of the Cougar 2. Well anticipated in the Schumacher circles. Well anticipated. Everyone wanted one. Now we've got one. Now, this is my build. It's going to be a series of videos, and we are going to put this puppy together. This works version of the Cougar is going to go together, he says confidently. But I'm manhandling at the moment, and you see on the video the new front wishbones, and these are very, very chunky, very chunky versions of the original. They are nowhere near what would you call it? They don't have the finesse of the original wishbones, which some people with original cars might say, this is great because my original car is still worth it, still has value. I don't know if that's why they did it, but I reckon they could have copied the front wishbones the same, but they chose to do these chunky versions, or beefy versions of the rear, because I never had any issues with my front wishbones. They never broke. I never had a failure on a front wishbone due to them being scrawny. See, look, this is an original front wishbone, so you can see the part number clearly on the wishbone. The new versions do not have the part numbers, and they do resemble them very well, but they are not tight. The sizes are identical. Got the sizes down to a T. They even look the same from a distance, but they are chunky models. Look, original, got the part number engraved with, this is the right one, it's got an R on it. See, the new wishbones don't have any part number on at all. That's just very strange. And they are slightly chunky. I don't think it'll make much difference in the build, but what you'll get is you'll get people trying to restore their original Cougar 2 works vehicles, and they will struggle. See, look, this is on the right is an original Cougar 2 front bulkhead. Let's call it front lower bulkhead. See, the holes are not there, but they are there. Look, ready to be drilled if you want to drill them. So the original doesn't have any pips on it, as in no dots, and the new one has this variant 4 of the front lower bulkhead, which is strange why they have put a 4th pip on there, because it looks the same as the re-released Cougar, which has only got 3. But anyway, it's not a comparison video. I'm just showing you a few different parts you might think. See, look, the one on the left, yoke, is the original. One on the right is the new Cougar 2 works version, which, if you're interested, this yoke is the same as the re-release Cougar, which I've now found out is the version they use on the Rascal, the Yoke. So this is why they're slightly different. So even the steering arms are slightly different. One on the left is original, one on the right is the new one, which they do follow the trend with the Cougar Riri. But anyway, just giving you a slight bit of insight on the couple of differences on the front end, nothing major. Got to remember to follow your race tips in the manual. Yeah, follow your race tips in the manual. They are very handy, very handy. But anyway, these do actually move quite nicely. Not like on my Cougar 2 Team Edition, where I had to put quite a bit of work in them to actually get them moving. They were quite poorly moulded. But these aren't too bad. This one's a bit sticky, but once I push the pin through, it does. It's free enough. That's not a problem. That's not a problem. If it did bind, I would have used the race tip in the manual, and I would have cleared out the joints. But this isn't too bad at all. This isn't too bad at all, actually. I mean, that chunky wishbone. I should have weighed them, actually. Should have checked the weight. I never did that. I was going to, but I forgot. But never mind. But all the hubs are the same. Bearings slot together. Oh, by the way, I've gone slight. I was going to go this video. I was going to follow the manual step by step, but I kind of emptied all the parts out the bags and got carried away. So you must excuse me if you think to yourself, he's not following the manual. I know, sorry. So they do an upgraded version of this steering arm and bearing. They do a double bearing version, which will be released in March, I think. I did look at the website. I'm sure it's March. The upgrades that they list in the manual, they're scattered around next year like crazy. So you've got your, what have you got? You've got your anti-roll bars, you've got your alloy bearing holders for your gearbox, you've got your dual bearing steering arms. What else have you got? You got your slipper clutch, you got your lay shaft for your slipper clutch, you've got your alloy yokes. See, the alloy yokes are the Rascal variant alloy yokes. They're just not purple. I'm not sure if you can still get the purple ones. Be nice if you could. Be very nice. What other? Oh yeah, there's carpet protectors for your suspension. There's all sorts of modifications, upgrades coming, but oh yeah, you can get some carbon fiber steering center shafts, whatever you call it, steering rods. And you get a reinforcing thing for the front of your model. That's carbon fiber. See, some nice upgrades you can get. As you've noticed, I'm using my Butch screwdriver to put these screws in, because if you're a novice and you've not put a brand new kit together before, you use self-tapping screws, and they do actually tap themselves. That's just why they are called self-tapping screws. This is why I'm using a beefy screwdriver, because my little puny screwdriver just doesn't do it on these new parts. So you have to get a bit of oomph behind them to get them in. But you have to be careful not to over tighten as well. Over tighten. So I have gone off manual. I think this is page 2. I'm not sure. But anyway. So bearing is in. Ball joint is on. I say it's nothing dramatic about this. We do use, you've got to remember, we do use the C-clips to put the pins in. So there's a little bit of a technique I use to put these in. Oh yes, moldings. Moldings are still a lot better than they used to be, but I've noticed that some bits of them are quite sharp. And when I put my bony fingers on them to put them together, I think that's a bit sharp. So this is why I'm cutting some off and filing them down. But they're a lot better than they used to be. Back in the day, Mr. Schumi, he made cars for modelers. And he left quite a little bit of work for said modeler to put the model together. Yeah, I do remember chopping some chunks off my Top Cat. Definitely put that together. But anyway, that's in the old days. We're doing this brand new Riri. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I've seen on the Facebooks and other social medias that people were disappointed. The people with original cars were disappointed that there was a Riri, because I think it was a shock factor, thinking I've got this original works Cougar 2 no one else has got, and now everyone can get them. So that car is no longer unique. But this happened with the original Cougar when the Riri came out, that everyone thought, oh no, my original 1990 Cougar isn't wanted anymore because everyone's got a Riri. But this, I've noticed this isn't the case. Once the Riris hit the shelf and people get them, there's a mindset with collectors that they want an original. They've got a Riri and they think, I want an original. So thus puts the cost of the original cars higher. This is my theory. This is my opinion, my theory, that people with original cars don't panic. Don't panic, because the original cars will maintain a place in the market. And I think it will be far superior to the Riri, even though if you look at some of the Riri parts, you cannot tell the difference at all, especially with stuff like the clutch and the gearbox, stuff like that. This is parts where people struggled to get for their original cars, and they're impossible to get. Plus the metal drive shafts, which will be released on about the 20th of January, I think, somewhere around that. And don't forget, if you've got an original car and you want to put a metal drive shafts in, do not buy works variants. They do not fit. They are releasing variants that fit the Riri, Cougar and Top Cat. These are the different versions. Slightly, I think the sizes are slightly different. But anyway, that's if you want to buy metal drive shafts for different cars, which I will be. I've got a Top Cat lined up with some, and I've got two Cougar 2 lined up for some. And I've got my other Cougar, which I race, lined up for some. So my wallet will be on fire buying upgrades. But anyway, let's carry on with this build instead of talking about what's going to happen. These yokes didn't like fitting the steering pivots. They just snagged. They snagged on them in strange places. The pins moved. The pins slotted in quite nicely, but because I don't know, but the edge of the yoke didn't want to pivot, and it got too close to the steering arms. We call them steering arms. I can't remember the exact name. They got too close, slightly too close. So I had to take a couple of mil off with my butch file. You have to watch things like that. Oh yeah, and let's call this a pro tip to the novice builder. When you are putting your E-clips on, put one side on first to your pivot bar. If you struggle to fit these pesky E-clips, put one side on your pivot bar first. So when you get to fitting it to your component, you only struggle with one side. And I've noticed something with the washers supplied with the kit, that they are because they are pressed washers, they are slightly raised, which makes an awkward E-clip fitting session very, very difficult because of the introduction of the washer. It doesn't give you much space to put your E-clip on. So I did change out my washers. This is a secret I used. I changed out my washers for some stainless steel washers, which were flat. I know, and I should be keeping this car original. I don't think it's going to be a shelfie, this car. I think I'll probably use it. Because this is a car to be raced, not to be shelved. But anyway, let's call it a pro tip. When you put your pivot bars in, put one E-clip on first and the washer, and then you've only got one to do when it's on the component. I find that a lot easier. I do find that a lot easier. But these parts, I never ever struggled fitting these, as in they were always free flowing and there was no friction. But it was the edge of the yoke, which it was just catching the steering pivot, which is quite surprising. Never expected that. I'm just crossing my fingers when the upgraded aluminium versions come out, they don't catch, because if you're not going to file down your aluminium upgrade, are you? You're going to have to file down the opposite side, which is the steering arm. But anyway, I'm sticking to I'm going to call it a pro tip. So fit one E-clip to your pivot bar and obviously your washer. And don't forget, I changed out my washers because, excuse my French, but they were peeing me off because they were, should we call it beveled? They were raised. They weren't, the original washers are not flat. They are raised. Looks like they've been punched out and they are raised and they're not completely flat. So I swapped them out for my stainless steel washers, which I found, surprisingly, were flat. I was very happy with like the one clip scenario. I did look at them and I thought, I ain't using them washers. It's like it doubles the size of the washer, because say like it's a millimeter, say, washer, it turns it into a 2mm washer because they're raised, they're beveled. But anyway, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, yeah, I did struggle to get my E-clips on because of the washers, this is why. You can either get a hammer and smash them flat. Let's call that a pro tip. Pro tip, hammer your washers flat if you haven't got any spare stainless steel ones. Because it was a royal pain in the bottom. But anyway, look, this is my pro tip. Get one of your E-clips on first before you actually bother trying to fit it to your car. Or let's be professional. Let's call it component. So I did check all of the holes. Here you go. Look, this is another sharp bit. I caught my bony thumb on this and it's stuck in. So I thought, I'm going to take this off because I can't be doing with jagged molding. Should we call it a burr sticking out of the plastic? Can't be doing with the molding paining my thumb when I pick the parts up. So in future, I don't want to be pained by bits of plastic sticking out moldings. I never noticed this straight away. I only noticed when I was just about to fit it. So another pro tip, people, check your components for burrs and bits of molding sticking out. I know it sounds a bit of a pro tip. I should have really noticed. But anyway, let's get back to putting this pivot pin in. So I've checked all the, what would you call them? Let's call them holes. I've checked all my holes, all my pivots. This one feels a bit sticky, but I think it's just a case of me not actually pushing it in properly. What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm trying. Yeah, it's stuck on what? It's the exit. Look, the exit. I don't know why. I think the groove in the pivot pin is getting stuck. So I thought to myself, shall I drill? Because you can drill them, run a drill through them to check and make sure that your pivot pins go through. This is turning into a bit of a Laurel and Hardy moment, isn't it? Get my pivot pin in. So this is what I would do if I was doing this again. I would probably get a drill. I did have a drill ready to check my pivot pins, to make sure that they were free. But then because you've got to remember, I'm inadvertently not bothering to look at the manual. And on this bit, you don't actually need a washer. So bizarre, really. I think it's a case of, you know how Schumacher, they reuse pivot pins, they reuse lots and lots of components. You'd be surprised how much stuff they reuse on different models. Because let's go back to the original Cougar from 1990. There was no washers used to retain the pivot pins. See, this pivot pin is slightly too short to use a washer. This is why a nice snug fit without one. See, I got carried away. I was building off manual, and then suddenly realised, I thought, hey, the pin's too short, and then I thought, I've got a washer on it, so I really should. It's okay, so let's call it a pro tip. Look at your manual, people. Look at your manual. Slightly more than what I do, because I've got it on page 1, but I'm not actually bothering to look at it. Oh, but never mind. This is coming together quite nicely. Let's call this another pro tip. You know, if your E-clip moves, see, look, I'm checking if my E-clip is moving. If it waggles, if it moves, it's not in. If it moves up and down or it waggles, it's not in there. There is 3 points of contact on your E-clip. 2 sides where it slides on, and the final part where it clips into the retaining pivot pin. And if it moves, it means one of those 3 positions has not got home. It is not where it's supposed to be. Here you go. Look, I did the race tip in the manual where it says check that all your joints are free and friction free, but without any what do you call it? Friction free, but without any. Let's call it slop. You don't want a sloppy joint. It wants to be quite. Here you go. Look, I'm using my pro tip. My pro tip is actually fitting one E-clip to the pivot bar first. Here you go. See, look, I'm checking that it doesn't wobble. I'm checking that all 3 parts of the pivot pin are connected to the E-clip. Because if one isn't in position, then your E-clip isn't fitted correctly. Look, that's it. I'm making sure I can see the groove in the pivot pin. Most of the time, you can get these E-clips on with your fingers, and then you just finish it with your pliers. Here you go, clipped on. See, look, I'm double checking my E-clip has fitted in all three positions. See that? It doesn't look like it has, but then again, they are very small. This is why I'm checking if it is moving or not. If it moves, it is not in position. Here you go. Oh, look at that. There's no friction in those joints whatsoever. That tells me that is ready for fitting. Now this is the part where I don't think people struggle, but they might do. But then again, look, this is my pro tip again, look. Fit one E-clip first, fit one washer first. To make sure that sits in the right position. It's very easy when it's not connected to the car, you see. When your pivot bar is not connected to your component, it's easy to see. See, look, I'm pushing this from the rear because it is very easy to fit your E-clip from the front of the lower bulkhead. See, I'm making it look difficult, but this isn't difficult at all. This is my pro tip to everyone who is building their very, very first Cougar 2 Works or Cougar or Riri or anything like this, Cougar wise. Look, push your washer forwards, get it out of the way. But you can't push your E-clip forwards. What I do, I bend, because it is flexible, I bend the suspension lower plate. I bend it out of the way, push my rod through, turn the E-clips like so, and push it home. Look at that. Look at that. Now, see what I mean? And then again, look, I've used my own stainless steel washers because they are flat. Look at that beauty, straight on. So if you try and do this from the rear of the lower bulkhead suspension plate, whatever you want to call it, it is quite difficult. But because the front is a lot more accessible with pliers, this is why I always do it like this. It makes it a lot easier for me. I like, when I do something, I try and make it as easy as possible for me. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Anyway, this is like an E-clip tutorial, isn't it? But anyway, see, look, I'm just double checking that the third part of the E-clip has gone in position. Because if that pesky third E-clip, see, because there's 3 points on the E-clip, 2 sides and the top. They all have to be in the slot. This is what I'm double checking. Can't quite see if it's gone home. But sometimes if you look at the E-clip, if they're misshaped, you can physically see that it hasn't gone into position. So and again, look, rinse and repeat, people. Put your E-clip on first, as he says confidently. Trying to do it, and there you go. See, if it wobbles, you're not in. See, look, is that wobbling? Yes, it is. So I can physically see that the E-clip hasn't gone into the groove properly. No, it's not wobbling, it's in. That is a pro tip. If your E-clip wobbles, it is not in. So one clip on, one washer on. Now we're going to shove this in from the rear. Get the washer out of the way. That's it. Oh, lost it. Oh, damn it. Come on. Washer on. Washer on. E-clip on. All we've got to do is push it together without messing about. Come on. On we go. But anyway, Cougar 2 Works. Is a very nice model. Very nice model. It has all the upgrades anyone could ever want. Here you go, bent it, pushed it, shoved it, twisted it, on it goes. This part of the build is pretty close to the original, pretty close. Your wishbones are slightly different, okay. Your yokes are different, okay. Are your steering pivots the same? Yeah, steering pivots are more or less the same, except for the internal. It uses the same methods as the original Cougar 2 works. That's it, really. I think this the bull race steering. All versions of the Cougar. There was only one version of the Cougar 2 works. There was no point making any other version. If someone says, "Oh, I've got a different version," there was only one version of the Cougar 2 works. Why make a different one? It's got all the upgrades that were available at the time. So all versions of the Cougar 2 works have got bull race steering. They've got a slipper clutch. They've got the alloy gearbox. They've got the vari shocks. They've got everything. They've got the slipper clutch. They've got everything. Cougar 2 Works is the ultimate car. There was no other versions. Okay, unless someone tried to sell you a Club 10 with some Cougar 2 Works upgrades on, then don't be fooled, people. One version only. Okay, so this front end, E-clips fitted, pivot pins nice and free. What else have we done? That's about it. It's front. I'm just checking my E-clips, man. These E-clips are pesky little buggers. You've got to watch them. My pro tip for these was I used my own stainless steel washers because the washers supplied were, I'm going to call them beveled. The washers are not completely flat. It did make a big difference to trying. It did make a big difference to trying to fit the E-clip to the pivot pin in position because they don't give you much room. And when you've got a washer double the size, because it's beveled, very, very difficult. This is why I elected stainless steel washers. But we're coming to the end of this first stage of my Cougar 2 Works rebuild. And let's call that done. Okay, people, let's call that done. And thank you very much for watching. And laters.